Okay, welcome everybody. I'm sorry for the brief delay, a little bit of operating difficulties, but we're up and we're ready. Um, Let me just preface that, just a general, first and foremost, obviously, is that the merit of our learning today should go for a refuah for all those who have been, God forbid, infected in any way, right? That they should have refuah shlema and the merit of the learning that we're all doing together. But for us, that at least speaking for myself, and I'm sure hundreds of thousands of others, we're all being for lack of a better word, quarantined to avoid infection, to avoid being infected, to avoid becoming carriers, to pass on to other people. Right? I'd like to suggest, you know, uh, more than just if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But more than that, it's bucket list time. That's right. Use this time of where the regular routine has come to a grinding halt, including, unfortunately, probably your business. Everything's at a grinding halt. So let it be bucket list time. Do that learning of that Masechta you never got around to. Double your learning. Write that book you're always putting off writing, or read that book you're always putting off reading, right? Uh, you know, Now, first and foremost, hopefully some of this will stick even after this crisis is over speedily in our days. And that's called tshuva. And that's the number one thing that God wants from us. He allows, the prosecution to demand justice and demand, punishment for our sins. God's agenda in agreeing with that and administering it himself, as he is the one, he is the true judge, is that it will hopefully wake us up to do tshuva so he could rightfully take it away as soon as possible, and we'll come out all the better for it. But there's another thing, just a cute idea, just like to share with you, that if we really use it for bucket list time, of course, for those things in our bucket list that are good things that we'd not be ashamed to share with our spouses and children, right? Talking about only good things on the bucket list, right? If we are truly using it to be productive, even more so than in our regular daily routine, and to be get even happier and to daven better and learn more and better, right? And just be overall happier than we are in our general routine. The prosecution itself will immediately drop charges. It's not what I had in mind. If this is what their punishment is, I'm dropping the charges. So really, let's turn this into an opportunity to pick up loose ends in our lives, right? And to take on projects that we kept on pushing off that we couldn't find time for, right? That it should be a productive time, that we might even in a certain way miss when we have to get back to the regular grind of life. And this series should be a part of that revolution. I've been putting out my Sefer in English for years. Uh, and now, hopefully, I'm hoping this lecture series in English for a wide audience will be the basis for which I could create the translation of my book, which will hopefully not just be in English, but also be repackaged and reformatted to be for a wide audience. The scholars and intellectuals will get satisfaction from it, but it'll also be perfectly accessible to the lay people. Okay, without further ado, one more thing I want to say, all right, as introduction. The book this particular book that I'm holding in my hand, that I will be working from, is of great sentimental value. It is not only from the very first print of this book that had three printings, but more than that, it is the copy I gave my saintly mother of blessed memory when it first came out. And she passed on about a year and a half ago, almost. And it was given to me as whatever inheritance, modest inheritance that was left over. So I'm using the very book that I inscribed to her. So it's of great sentimental value. And so, in addition to our learning being a merit for a quick recovery for all those affected. Let it also, the learning also be in a schus for Aliyas Neshama of my mother, Shulam Ispat HaRav Dov Yehuda. Okay, without further ado, I am referring to my sefer. I'm not going to be reading out from it, but I'm just referring to it, as notes to make sure I don't forget anything. Because even if right now we are giving this over in English and for a popular wide audience, I do want to still hit every single point in the book. All right. Now, the Rambam initially laid out these 13 principles that he identified as Yesodos Hadas, right? The foundations of our religion, right? He laid them out in his commentary on the Mishnah. You know, as we know, his commentary on the Mishnah, which is a wonderful, fundamental work. If you want to know what it is, it superimposes the Gemara on the Mishnah. Regarding the Mishnah itself, the Gemara's side discussions and how the Gemara uses the Mishnah as a springboard. That's not what he does, but he gives you how the Gemara understood the Mishnah, right? But he has, and that's a beautiful work in its own right. As he writes, it could be an excellent introduction to Talmud or an excellent way to review Talmud because he superimposes the Gemara on the Mishnah, vis-a-vis what the Gemara said about the Mishnah itself. But he has monumental introductions at certain parts of his Mishnah commentary because it was the first thing he wrote. And he gave you a lot of introduction. And the truth is, you can't really appreciate everything the Rambam wrote later in life if you don't really do it in the order that he wrote it. Because he didn't make it dependent, but he kind of expected that you would, learn his earlier works earlier and his later works later, because he refers back to his earlier works. And it's a whole different experience if you, let's say, learn the Mishnah Torah, having learned the Pirush HaMishnah, his commentary Mishnah, and having learned this Sefer, it's a whole different experience when you learn the Mishnah Torah, and when you learn all of the above, and from there you go to his guide, you see how it was one holistic system. His knowledge of the law, his view of the law, and his view of Jewish philosophy, it's all unified. But I'm not going to talk about that at this time at greater length. I just want to mention the point that he first laid out his 13 principles early on in his very first book, the commentary on the Mishnah. And it's in his, we said in that book he has some monumental introductions. He wrote a whole introduction just to one chapter of Mishnah, the chapter of Chelek, which in our editions of the Talmud is the final chapter of Tractate Sanhedrin. It should be noted that in the Rambam's edition, it was the second to last. Right. So he wrote a whole introduction just to that chapter because there's a lot of philosophy there. So a lot of things. And there is where he isolated, I shouldn't say isolated. He isolated from the rest of Torah, but the main point is that he identified 13 ideas as being the rock-hard basis of Judaism. And the question what that means. How are these 13 ideas different from the many other truths of the Torah? But what I want to first mention over here is that he wrote a postscript, right, after he identified these 13 and explained the difference that it makes, right? I'm going to get into that. Explain the difference that it makes all the difference in the world, whether you know these 13 or not, and how you are very lacking if you learned the entirety of Torah but never knew and internalized these 13 ideas. But he writes, at the end of all of that the Rambam writes, I have spoken at great length about many things, and I have actually, with this, deviated from my book. His book is a commentary on the Mishnah, right? But I did that because I saw that this benefits our faith very much, and I have, gathered together helpful ideas that have been, originally, scattered amongst many different books. I collated them and I brought them together. Right? Include these 13 ideas, but I put them in one place as the list of 13. These ideas were out there, right? And therefore know them and review them and have success with them many times and contemplate them, a very thorough contemplation. Because if you think that you understood my 13 principles from one or even 10 times, right, you are fooling yourself. He swears by Hashem, you are fooling yourself. Don't think even after 10 times you really understand the full depth and the full impact and the full meaning and significance of these 13 ideas. Right? Therefore, do not read them quickly, because I did not write it as says, it is a good idea to write as a pillar. It is good, bad, but rather after great analysis, and after I saw, right, great proofs of what are ideas that are true and that ought to be believed in, and what are the falsehoods that should be rejected, and I knew what is befitting to understand. Right, and I have actually proofs for each and every idea, and the Rambam refers to this later also in the sixth principle, that he had planned to write a detailed commentary on why these 13 are the pillars of Judaism. So these 13, they're not 13 simple ideas for beginners. It says this is very deep why these are the pillars of Judaism, and he intends to write a whole book explaining them and why, which he didn't get around to doing. And that's what we hope we will fulfill with this book. We have fulfilled this book. He also says, these aren't simple ideas, and certainly what makes them pillars of Judaism, right, is not simple. There's a deep reason for why these ideas are pillars of Judaism, and therefore he warns us, you have to analyze, think about it deeply. It's not to be taken lightly or at face value. And so therefore, with the Rambam warning us that this is deep, and even after 10 times, don't think you fully understand it. So I hope everyone will take this to heart and take this series very seriously, and listen, with undivided attention, and internalize it. And you can always reach out to me and ask me questions. Okay. So now the first thing is to understand, why, not why, but rather what does it mean that a certain idea is a pillar of Judaism? But right, presumably everything the Torah tells us is true. You have to believe in every word of the Torah, right? And there are those that criticize the Rambam for this. And by what right do you say these ideas, as it were, are in any way more important than anything else that the Torah preaches? The truth is the truth. They're all equally true. They're all equally from God. But the amazing thing is that the Rambam himself writes that. That's why this really have to understand what it means. Something is a pillar of Judaism. One is like a foundation of Judaism. The Rambam himself writes that. Where does he write it? In the 8th principle of his 13 principles, and the principle that you have to believe that the whole Torah that we have, that meaning that Moshe taught us, he got directly from God. Right, so the Rambam over there stresses, and this is in the 8th principle out of the 13, right? The principle of believing that Moshe only said exactly what God told him, right? So he says, and therefore you cannot differentiate with the verses that talk about, let's say, the lineage of the Gentiles, like, and the children of Ham were Cush and Mitzrayim, or the wife of one of the sons of Etab was Mehetavel, or Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz. You cannot differentiate between those psukim, those verses, and the verses like Anoch Elokecha, I am Hashem your Lord, or Shema Yisrael, like Hero Israel, Hashem is our Lord, Hashem is one. We taught psukim that talk about the very fundamentals of our religion. It's all equally from the, as it were, figuratively speaking, the mouth of God, and it's all Hashem's wholesome, pure, holy, true Torah. So the Rambam himself writes, right, that you cannot say that any verse in Torah is more holy or more meaningful than a different verse. And he goes on to condemn anyone that has ever said that Menashe, the evil king of the kingdom of Judah, right? He was Chazal, our sages consider him a tremendous heretic because he made fun of these verses that talk about the the lineage of the Gentiles and things like that. No, it's all from the mouth of God. And as the Rambam goes on to say, and since it's all from the mouth of God, it's all equally as true, all equally as holy. And you just have to pray to God to open your eyes to see the depth, the infinite wisdom in those, verses, where the full impact of, their deep, deep significance is a little bit hidden. It's a little bit cloaked, right? But you have to believe that there's as much there as there is in the Psukim of Anochi and Shema Yisrael. Right? So wait a minute. So the Rambam agrees with this idea. All of Torah is equally from God and equally as holy and equally as deep. You know, what did the Rambam mean? These 13 ideas are pillars of Judaism. So it's not just a criticism of the Rambam. It's really a contradiction in Rambam. And this is just in the 8th principle out of its 13. So it's like an internal contradiction within the principles, because the 8th principle says all of Torah is equally from God, all equally is true, all equally as holy. So the 8th principle simply negates the whole idea of the 13 principles. Well, obviously, the Rambam, would not make such a obvious self-contradictory error. We have to get to the depth of this. So even just the idea, so we're seeing already from the onset of this session that just to identify the idea, to define, to define the idea of a pillar of Judaism is in itself a deep thing. Right? It's a very non-obvious thing. Pillar of Judaism, if all of Torah, everything the Torah says is equally as true and equally as holy, right? Okay, so the Rambam had a opponent, came much later in history than he did, maybe 200 years later, I'm guessing. He was from a student. I don't even know if he could still even be called I guess technically he'd still be called a Rishon, but he was Rav Yosef Albo, who was a student of Crescus, the famous Jewish philosopher Crescus, Ibn Crescus, that Rav Chassan Ibn Crescus was a Talmud, a disciple of the Ran, Rabbeinu Nisim ben Ruvain. So, Rabbeinu Nisim ben Ruvain was a Talmud of the Rajba, roughly. Right? He studied, he brings down in his commentary from the Rajba and the Ritva. The Rajba and Ritva were, they studied, whether directly or had the writings of the Ramban, Nachmanides. And Nachmanides himself was maybe a whole generation after my life. So we're talking about 4 or 5 generations later, right? But he wrote a book challenging really the opening chapter just challenges the Rambam's whole notion of pillars of Judaism. And he wrote his own Sefer Ikarim, book of principles. Now he has his own view. Like he actually is willing, right, to admit that there's an idea of Ikarim, but to him it's a very, very I don't know if abstract's the right word. It's a very conceptual idea, and it's like this. He says, there are certain ideas that are true, but if you are ignorant of them or if you deny them, it will not cause a collapse of your intellectual world. Right? All right. I'll give a crude example. How much of your life would change if you honestly believe the moon is made out of cheese? How much? How much would it affect? Right? No, cheese, that much cheese that that big from far away, that would create, that massive cheese would create gravitational pull that would affect the tides, so it won't destroy Newton necessarily. It won't really change much in your life. It's not that lack of knowledge is not really going to disrupt your life very much, right? At all. Even your knowledge side, nothing's going to collapse. In your worldview or your notion of the sciences, if you have that, what we are convinced in this day and age is an erroneous belief. And there are many things like that. A lot of facts that if you'd be unaware of them, it's not going to cause a collapse of any type of intellectual structure or cultural structure that you have. You're in error about a detail, but it doesn't affect anything else in your life. But then there's being ignorant of an idea that causes a total collapse of the whole logical structure. If you're ignorant of that idea, then you can't have that structure at all. Right? So a person who does not recognize the United States of America, right, certainly will not feel bound by American law. It's an absurdity. If you don't believe in the United States exists and is a legitimate government, then of course you don't believe in U.S. law, right? No U.S. government, no U.S. law. To give a crude example, so he did something very interesting, which I don't know where contemporary philosophy is, but this was considered to be philosophically accurate for centuries. He says, how do you define religion? Just the idea of religion, right? There are many different religions, but is there a common definition to all religions? That's part of the very definition called religion, right? He says, yeah, a religion implies three things. Three things, right? First of all, there's a God, right? No God, no religion, right? Well, and that another thing is that this God commanded a law. Because he didn't command the law, ain't no religion. Right? If he didn't give any dictate, right? And lastly, and this one is the least obvious, but it's amazingly was for centuries said to be, iron part of the ironclad definition of religion, that there will be reward and punishment. Meaning to say, it makes a difference whether you keep that law or not. You will benefit if you keep the law, and you will be punished or you will be in some way harmed or come up short if you don't keep the law, right? And the simplest way to explain this on the most basic level, there are higher levels to explain it. On the most basic level, right? What's wrong with the following statement? I've got something for you that's very important, very, very important, and it's beautiful and it's significant and it's the best, but it makes no difference if you keep it or not. If it makes no difference, then it's meaningless, right? So just saying that there's reward and punishment, is in other words, also means it makes a difference. It makes a difference. You'll gain by keeping it, and you'll lose by violating it. And that's why it's important. If it makes no difference if you keep it or not, right? It makes no difference, then it's meaningless. Right? So for religion to be a meaningful concept, that's there's a God, and that God commanded a law, and that law, you will benefit if you keep it, you lose out if you don't. Right? Hence, meaningful. And on a deeper level, it also means that if religion is there to make some kind of relationship between you and the God who created it. So if there's no reward and punishment, means he doesn't respond. He doesn't respond. So where's the relationship? Where's no relationship, no religion? Right? But the more basic way is the first way that we said it. So therefore, Albo said like this. I agree that there could be certain ideas that, if in the absence of idea, causes a collapse of the whole intellectual structure. If any one of these three ideas, that there is a God, or that he commanded a law, or that there is reward and punishment, meaning benefit, what to gain by keeping it, what to lose by not keeping it. If you're missing any one of those three, ain't no religion. When I put out the book, I'm not going to use the word, right? But there is no religion. So okay, so he divides like this. So he says every religion, just by its definition of being a religion, meaning the criteria of being a religion. So every religion will have these three ideas. Judaism has that there's a God, that he gave the law, and there's reward and punishment. Christianity has that. Islam has that. Right? And I'm sure even many pagan religions have that. Now, these ideas are just part of the very definition of religion. That is, the question is whether this religion is the true religion, or religion is a fake religion that someone made up. And there are also many other beliefs that aren't part of the essential definition of the religion. So, let's say in Judaism, right? Every word of Torah is true. We do believe that the story of Abraham being told to sacrifice Isaac of the Akedah, right? That happened. Now, a person who's ignorant of that story, or God forbid denies that story, could still be called a religious person. He believes in a God, believes there's a Torah. He just doesn't, and it makes a difference. But so now, of course, we say he's a heretic because he denies one of the truth that Torah tells us to believe. But being a heretic, according to Albo, is which carries terrible penalties. It's not synonymous with having lost religious structure. You know what it's like being a heretic, according to Albo, denying one of the things the Torah tells you to believe. If it's not one of those three, it's still called you have a religious structure. Right? But you've committed a heinous crime that you'll be punished for. So whether that crime is heresy or it's no different than, God forbid, a religious person in any religion. I mean, I'm not, may be guilty of theft, even though the Torah says not to steal. Maybe God forbid guilty of murder, God forbid, right? Or adultery. Sadly, also God forbid, but that is quite prone to happen because people are human, and that's a very great temptation. Right? And so he did a heinous crime and he has to suffer the penalty, but it's still called that he has religion because he believes in the three basic ideas that there is a God, he gave a law, and there is reward and punishment. So, he has religion, he's in violation of his religion. But to say that there is no God whatsoever, that person is not in violation of his religion. He has no religion, right? Equally a crime. But so you might ask, what difference does it make? It's all just a philosophical difference, right? It's from a legal halachic standpoint, it's the same heresy whether he denies the story of Akedah Yitzchak or he denies the existence of God. But there's a philosophical difference. The one who just denies the story of Akedah Yitzchak may still have a religion. He is like the religious guy who committed adultery. It's a heinous crime, cardinal sin, right? But but he has a religion. He has a religion. He has in his mind and heart a religious structure. He just violated it. That's all. As opposed to a person who doesn't believe in God, he has no religion. And I don't know. Against my better judgment, it should be said, that according to Albo's categories, I shouldn't say this. Why not? Why not? I'm not. I love all Jews. I love all Jews. I'm just making a philosophical, theological statement, right? But it means I love all Jews, and I hope all Jews see the light and join what is called Orthodox Judaism, right? I hope they see the light, and I love them, and I hope they join me, and they're welcome to my Shabbos table, and I'll do even better. They're welcome to my Purim table. That's a lot more fun. Right? So, I love all Jews. So please take this in stride. I'm just speaking a philosophical statement, right? By Albo's categories, and I'm saying there's Albo. There's not Yochanan Bechhofer. There's Albo, right? By Albo's categories, Judaism is a religion, Christianity is a religion, Islam is a religion. Right? All three are religions, right? Just we say Judaism is a real religion, and we say the other two are, no, called fake, right? CNN religions. Okay, you know, that's our opinion, right? That's what we believe. And we'll discuss that later. Right? But Reform Judaism, which, as I understand it, Reform and Reconstruction, they don't even have to believe in God, let alone you don't believe that He really commanded a law, right? And it was all made up. That doesn't qualify even as a religion. I'm just saying this, and I mean I don't mean to offend anybody because I love Reform Jews, love Reconstruction Jews because they're Jews, right? I just hope that they open their eyes to see that there's only one Torah, there's only one version of Judaism, right? Which allows for a lot of diversity: Ashkenazic, Sephardic, Hasidic, Lithuanian. Right? You can have a lot of fun, a lot of individuality with the one authentic form of Judaism. That's just what I'm saying. You know, Reform and Reconstructionist Judaism, perhaps, I don't know what conservative currently believes, they may not even make the criteria for religion, whereas according to Albo's categories, Christianity, Islam doesn't mean that they're true. Doesn't mean that they're true, but there's that structure that's called a religious structure. So this is Albo's ideas, and that's how he divided up his book. Right? He divided up his book into, first of all, his treatise, saying his theory that he disagrees with the Rambam's 13, his list of 13, because basically the objections that we raise, if you're talking about the Torah is true, all Torah is true. And if you're looking for like certain essential ideas to make a basic religious structure, it boils down to its three. He doesn't know where the Rambam's coming from, as we say in Yiddish, nishta hin, nishta her. It's neither here, neither there, right? It's not the most essential ideas on the one hand, right? We could boil down to a more essential structure, and on the other hand, it's if you want to count everything that's true, you got to count every word in Torah, right? So that's his first essay, and then he speaks his own philosophy in the context of of the three Ikarim set up. So on the Ikar, believing in God, right? On that. So once he's on that discussion, he discusses all the details that Judaism says about God, but they're details, right? They're details that the details of that category. You deny any of those details, you're a heretic. But if you deny any of those details, you may be a heretic, but still you have a religious structure. Just you violated a mandated belief. The same way a religious man could never, commit adultery. Right? So same thing in thought, called for lack of a better word, thought crimes. But I hate that; it sounds liberal, right? I mean to say, you have mandated beliefs. It could be in violation of that mandated belief, but it's still you still have a religion, right? Just like the religious guy who steals or commits adultery. Right? Yeah. So and then in the next one is his next section is that the Torah came from God, and over there he says everything he thinks regarding that. And then the third one, that Torah makes a difference, and he says everything about that. Comes out that he didn't have such, we get into the details, and the details, a lot of things he agrees with the Rambam. There are things that he does disagree, but largely, their main disagreement was what's an Ikar. He cannot understand where the Rambam is coming from, but he does agree that the Rambam's Ikarim, all those ideas they enumerated are true. They are all true. He just doesn't see why the Rambam called them Ikarim. They're like all the truths of the Torah, you have to believe it. If you're looking for Ikarim, to boil it down to a very basic, essential structure, it's these three ideas, which are the three ideas that are common to anything that you would define as a religion. Okay. I spent more time on Albo in this forum than than I spend on in my book. Right? We're doing this. We're doing this, unrehearsed, off the cuff as the mood moves us. Um, All right, so now the so now to understand where the Rambam's come from, that's what we want to, and I should say right here, right now, something which I didn't say in this book, which I intend to elaborate upon greatly, greatly when I put out my book in English. And it should be speedily soon. May use the coronavirus downtime as an opportunity to get to that thing on the bucket list now, sooner rather than later. Um, you know, is to clearly prove that in course of the generations, the Rambam's 13 pillars of Judaism have been ratified. They have been ratified. Yes, and this is nothing to be like in shock about, right? Anyone who knows our history, our legal history, I mean to say, the development of our Torah, right, is that certain ideas were open for debate, and they, in the later generation, they get resolved, they get ratified, they get agreed upon, they get better defined. It's the way Torah works, man. The now, first of all, you will not really find anyone that seriously disputes the way of the Rambam's 13 Ikarim, with the quasi exception to one, which right. So yeah, you won't find in our ancient literature, like the Tanakh or the Mishnah and the Talmud, the Midrashim or the Zohar, anything that's going to contradict what's written here, in the Rambam's 13 Ikarim, as we will demonstrate. Right, but the fact that some people may not have been knowledgeable or zoomed in on these details. Some people, we had plenty of big rabbis that were poskim. They were good at deciding, regular everyday Jewish law, right? Of kosher and the laws of Shabbos and things like that. But they didn't have much of a head for philosophy. It wasn't their thing. They were engaged, so they didn't know. They didn't really study these things thoroughly. The Rambam himself writes about it, right? We know from the Gemara, the Mishnah and the Gemara, things were open for debate until they finally get resolved in a later generation. Right? So there was a guy, he's still out there, Mark B. Shapiro, another guy, Menachem, that, like, as it were, they do smoke screens and mirrors. Say the Rambam's 13 Ikarim, they're not really unanimous. It's the Rambam's own opinion. Many disagreed. No. First of all, that these ideas are true, no one disagrees. No one seriously disagrees. Some people may have made some terrible errors, but Jewish history declares them as serious errors. Right? We've had people who have made mistakes. These people they play a game. They use computer search engines, and they try to dig up some Jewish guy that lived centuries ago. Not necessarily the guy who lived just because he lived centuries ago is he an outstanding Jewish scholar just because he wrote and he lived many years ago. Hey, right? But sometimes people are made mistakes. Some people sometimes didn't express themselves correctly. Maybe sometimes people didn't work things out clearly. This happens in halacha all the time, right? The Talmud left a lot of things open. The Rambam resolved them. Yeah. Just as a crude example, I'm not getting into all the details. It's probably going to be a whole pamphlet, a whole appendix in addition to the translation of this book, a whole appendix proving that the Rambam's 13 Ikarim have been, in course of generations, ratified and considered to be the truth. No different than how the rulings of the Shulchan Aruch have been accepted. The Rambam's ruling that these are the pillars, not just that these things are true. You don't need a Rambam for that. That all the things listed in those 13 ideas are true, everyone agreed. Maybe regarding some of the details, some people were in error, but everyone agreed. Right? Anyone of authority, and the Bible, the Mishnah, and the Talmud will clearly confirm that, and the Zohar also. The primary sources in Judaism will confirm the Rambam was right about everything he said. Right? But there's more than that. The Rambam's decision that of all the truths of the Torah, these 13 are what we call Ikarim, right? There's something special about them that we have yet to define. Not that they're more true than the rest of Torah. There's something special about them that is yet to be defined. That idea was also ratified, by widely in Jewish philosophy, very widely in Jewish philosophy, right? Uh, Number one, and even in Kabbalah, the Kabbalists also endorsed the Rambam and said that what he said, fits perfectly with the Kabbalah. The Shloah Kodesh, Shesiya Horowitz, was carried both mantles as one of the greatest Kabbalists of all time. And including Kabbalists, he was a big philosopher. He knew philosophy also. He knew the Rambam's Guide to the Perplexed. He knew Ikarim, Malbo. He wasn't just Kabbalah solely and only Kabbalah and philosophy. Right? And he was from the big poskim. He says the Rambam's 13 Ikarim is something huge, and it's a secret of the 13ness that we actually spoke about in our first video address when the coronavirus hit. I refer you back to an address that's posted on my site. I didn't do it on this regular YouTube channel. I did it on my private YouTube channel by mistake, right? But I refer you to that thing. It's called Seeking Sterile Purity. So go to evanshesiya.com. Go to my site. It's very worthwhile. I want you to just listen to the first 15 minutes talking about the 13 factor because it was Friday the 13th. And I discussed why I started to actually mention of that because the 13 is a big number in Judaism. I want to make sure that this is. Oh, you see, it's a good thing I'm checking some of the. evanshesiya.com. Oh, what am I doing? It's right here on the top of the screen. Silly me. It's right here on top of the screen. I didn't realize that. It's just so used to seeing the background. I realized that my already posted, on the top. Go to my site, look for that video of seeking sterile purity, and you'll see all discussion about the 13 factor. I mean, speaking of using our Corona downtime constructively, I'm also trying, aside from putting out this series, to also write a commentary on the HaGaon, a basic outline type commentary, like a reader for the month of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan, a reader for the Pesach through Shavuos season. And we're going to discuss the, Echad Miyodea, the Who Knows One. And we are going to, over there, explain how we go from 1 to 13. 13 also is Gematria Echad, the Hebrew word for one. And we explain this, we're going to explain this in great detail in our reader. But aside from our reader, on this video, you'll see that we gave a basic cursory understanding of the idea 13 and why we were called the one nation. We are 13 tribes when we subdivide Yosef to Menashe and Ephraim, right? And we have a Torah that is extrapolated with the Yud Gimel Midas, Shatorah, the 30 principles of Rabbi Shmuel, and the Torah is meant to be extrapolated with. All the 13s are parallel to a reflection of the oneness of God that is displayed with the 13 attributes of mercy, and says the Rambam's 13 Ikarim, perfectly parallel to the 13ness. That is a very powerful number in Judaism, because it all is the 13 is a detailed expression of the one, the Echad. Now you have to go to that video to understand it, and also deals with the coronavirus, so it's worthwhile to see. The name of the video is Seeking Sterile Purity. Right? Seeking sterile purity. Let's see if I Now, all right. So on the site listed on top of the board here, go look for Seeking Sterile Purity. It should be on the homepage. All the recent stuff's on the homepage. All right, so we'll say 13 next. So I mean, sort of around, but the big one I want to get to is the Shloah Kodesh, as does the Kormana Rebbe. Big philosophers and Kabbalists have endorsed the Rambam's hitting the nail on the head, and his 13 principles perfectly parallel to the other 13s of our Torah and our 13 tribes of Israel. Right, amazing. Right, so therefore, we really must do what we can to understand the Rambam, because he was ratified and it has been agreed. So even like many things, like things are left unresolved in the Mishnah, they get resolved in the Talmud. Things unresolved in the Talmud get resolved by the Rishonim. Things unresolved by the Rishonim get resolved in the Shulchan Aruch. So also, if there was ever a little bit of lack of a better word, confusion about the Rambam's 13 Ikarim, it has been conclusively resolved and ratified and accepted as the truth, right? Right. So therefore, we must understand the Rambam. So now I know I tend to do too much in one shot. So I'm going to end here with a cliffhanger. But I don't want to have there's a cliffhanger where it's like, it's like the next step is total oblivion. And there's the cliffhanger where, kind of see where you need to get to. You just don't know how to get there, right? So I'm going to leave you with the latter type, right? Where you could see, where you need to get to, right? And that's it, that the Rambam actually, in the second to last paragraph, after he introduced the 13 principles, final paragraph we read at the beginning of this session about how this stuff is deep. Don't think you understood it after once or even after 10 times. But the Rambam writes, regarding the difference that these 13 make. He said a real halachic difference, not just a philosophical difference. Like Albo's category, it's just pure philosophy, right? The three categories are not more true than anything else that's within those categories. It's just pure philosophy. These three ideas are essential to make up the definition of what we call religion. Rambam says, nah, these that which I call these 13 ideas, the foundations of Judaism, is not abstract philosophy. No. Makes the most real difference in the world. And I'm reading the Rambam. I'm going to read him in free translation in English, but it's going to be word for word from what he writes in the postscript to these 30 principles. So when a man believes in these principles and he clarified his faith in them, only then he has entered into the assembly of Israel. I mean, this is right. I'm saying parenthetically, this is rites of passage. This is a prerequisite to be a member of the assembly of Israel. Right? And then and only then, since he's now your fellow Jew, because he believes in these 13 ideas. So now all the mitzvah to love him and to have mercy on him and to conduct ourselves with him with all the other mitzvot that Hashem commanded us between us and our fellow Jew. Right? It only goes active and live and becomes obligatory regarding this individual when he believes these 13 ideas. And even and once he believes in these 13 ideas, if he did all the sins in the world that he could possibly do, but he didn't do it out of spite. He just did it because he couldn't control his passions. He will be punished for his sins. Right? There's no free lunch, there's no free rides, because we reward and punishment. But since he is a believer, after being punished for his sins, he will have a portion in the world to come. And he is considered to be from the evildoers of Israel. And then he writes over there in the conference, a person who is a knowledgeable and spiteful denier of any one of these principles, just the opposite, out of the fold, and he has no citizen rights. No citizen rights, which means he doesn't even have the protection of judge and jury and due process. But okay, we don't need to get into those details because it's very rare to find someone that had the benefit of a Jewish education and still denied any of these principles. Right? It's a rare thing. Uh, but here's the amazing thing, and with this something to think about, and we will believe that her. If you want to make sure that you're not going to miss the next installment, which I can't tell you right now ahead of time when it'll be. I hope it'll be tomorrow. But I can't tell you even what time, and I can't even tell you with definity if it'll be tomorrow. So subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button, and you'll get notifications in advance and notification and reminders, so you won't miss a single installment. All right. So please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe. All right. But for our purposes, right? Just to let's recap what the Rambam says. He says, one of the differences it makes, these 13 ideas are prerequisites to be considered from the assembly of Israel. Yeah, you're born Jewish. You're born Jewish. Being born Jewish alone doesn't cut it. Now we're going to discuss this in detail. My Rosh Yaakov Weinberg had a lot to say about this, right? But we're going to take the Rambam at face value at this point before we unpack it even more in light of how my Rosh Yeshiva of Yaakov Weinberg explained it. Right, but the point of I'm saying is that if you have these 13, this is you become now then you are called fellow Jew, and all the mitzvahs mitzvahs between man and fellow Jew apply, right? And now that it has an amazing benefit, guaranteed portion of the world to come. Now it doesn't mean you're allowed to do averos, you're not allowed to do any sins, but God will work it out that your sins will be burnt out in this world or in the soul world, and you will make it into the eternal world of Olam Haba. Whereas if you don't believe in these 13, your mitzvahs, even if you do mitzvahs, they're not worth Olam Haba. You'll get your reward in this world. So it's an amazing thing. It makes you a member of the assembly of Israel. You're in the network, and all the mitzvahs of Ber Lamachavero, between man and his fellow Jew, right, all apply. And membership has its privileges, as they say, to paraphrase from America. Membership has its privileges. They have a guaranteed portion of the world to come. What if you sin? So God will make sure to punish you and give you atonement on those sins. No free ride. But he's going to work it out that you're not going to lose your portion of world to come. He'll give you atonement for those sins in this world or in the soul world, right? Just to guarantee you'll ultimately make it to the next world. Whereas you don't have these things, right? If you do good deeds, it doesn't seem that you have a portion of the world to come. And it's like an atheist who does mitzvahs. So of course God rewards every good deed, but you'll get your reward in this world. Right? So it's an amazing. It makes the most amazing, fundamental, meaningful differences in the world. What is it about the Ikarim? What is it? All right, so leaving you with this cliffhanger, but at least there's some direction to this cliffhanger. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next installment when we're going to unpack this and answer these difficulties. Everyone, keep safe and use this time to knock things off the bucket list.